Hi! When stringing a racket, it's recommended that you alternate the installation of the main strings and never overlap more than 3 strings. And this is to evenly distribute the stress on the frame as strings are being tensioned. But have you ever wondered if it makes a difference if you overlap by 1, 2, or 3 strings? Well, in this video, I'll be stringing all 3 methods and I'll use a 4th method that's not recommended. All right, let's get into it. All right, so before I get into explaining the 3 methods that I'll be using, I am measuring the string for a 1-piece string job, enough for the mains and 2 of the top crosses. And I've done a couple other videos on this, so I'll post the links down below if you want to check that out. The racket that I chose is a Prince Phantom 100X. It is a flexible frame, so if there's any kind of distortion that's going to happen during the stringing process, I thought that having a flexible frame would be better than something stiff. The strings that I'm using is Prince Synthetic Gut 17 gauge, and I will be stringing all of the rackets at 54 pounds. Now, getting into the first method, I am going to be using the overlap of 3 mains. So what you can see there is I'm going to start with the left side and install 3 of the mains. And if you look at the picture above, you'll notice on the 3rd row where it says number 3, 3rd row from the top, I am installing, if you see that blue, numbered 1, those 3 mains. And once I finish those 3 mains, then I'm going to rotate the racket around, and then you'll see number 2 in that red. I'll install 6 of the mains there, and again, the overlap is never going to be more than 3 strings. So once I complete the red side, then I rotate the racket back around, come back to the left side, and install 5, since there's a total of 8 on each side. I already did 3. And then once I'm done with the yellow, I'll come back to the green, number 4 right there, and finish up all the mains. In this next method, I'll be demonstrating the installation of the main strings by overlapping 2 strings. And you can see that I'm using my Prince Neos 1000. I'll give you a little backstory. Back when I was stringing in the 80s, I was using an Echelon machine, which is similar to this machine in design. And I knew that the installation of the mains should never go over 3, but I felt that if I went with 2 or 1, it would probably be better. For the fact that it would cause less racket distortion and more even tensioning. But you can see that my machine gets stuck right there because of the way the machine was designed. So if I went with a 1-string overlap with this machine, the way it works, there would be a lot of rotating of the racket just to get the mains installed, and I thought it would take too long, although I thought it would be a good idea to reduce that number from 3 to 1. So what I did instead is I compromised. I went with 2. So I currently, if you look at the diagram, I'll start with the left side. This is the 2nd row from the top. And I'll install the 2 mains there. And then I'll go to the right side on the red and install 4. And then you can see the same pattern where I go 4, 4, and then eventually end up on the left side with 2 strings on this particular racket. So I've been using this technique since then. I haven't changed, even though I use an electronic machine. But it'd be interesting to see what this experiment reveals and if it's time for me to change my method. In this 3rd method of installing the mains, I'm only overlapping it by 1 main string. Now earlier I mentioned that this was actually a method that I was considering when I was using the Echelon machine. But because of the design of the machine, where I couldn't rotate the racket a full 360, it didn't seem like something that I would want to do because it would take too much time. But I did go ahead and time myself as I was stringing this racket on my electronic machine, and I was pleasantly surprised that it only took me about 43 seconds longer. So it's definitely something I would consider changing to. And other things that I measured after each of the stringings was 3 things. 1, with the Babolat RDC, I measured the string bed deflection. Then I use the ERT 300 to measure the dynamic tension and the string tension. And finally, I use the string meter to measure each individual string, the 8 center mains and the 8 center crosses. Now, because I use this method, if you look at the diagram again, you can see where I started with the blue string on the left. Then I just alternated two. I went to the red, and I'm going left, right. So then I'm going to go yellow, then right to the green, left to the white, right to the blue, left to the red, right to the yellow, and finally left to the green. So even though I had to flip-flop 8 times back and forth, because of the fact that my racket can rotate a full 360, it really wasn't as hard or as time-consuming as I thought. This fourth method is not recommended, where I install all 8 mains on one side of the frame, and then I proceed to string the rest of the mains on the other half. This will lead to frame distortion, and I'm really curious to find out how it will affect the string bed deflection and the overall string tension. Alright, so let's take a look at some readings. If you hear some music in the background, it's not part of this video. There's a wedding next door in the lagoon, so hopefully that won't be a distraction. But in this first column, I have the 4 methods listed here. And I actually timed myself to see how quickly I could do each one. And of course, this one was the fastest because this is the one I'm most familiar with. But on the 1 overlap and the 3, it was pretty close to each other. So nothing stood out there. The same goes with the RDC string bed deflection. We got 2 highs here at 58 and 58 here, but you know, at 57, they're not that far off. The DT didn't match up though. On this one, it got 58 with the DT of 37, which makes sense. It's higher than the 57 and the 36 here. For some reason, this 58 didn't show up as high as here for whatever reason. I didn't mention earlier, but I actually strung each of these methods twice because I wanted to see if the initial reading I was getting was going to be consistent if I did it a second time. So in some cases, like in, I think it was this one, I had a string bed deflection of 57 and then I did another one 58. If I was showing 2 numbers like that, I would always average up. So there'll be some cases later on that I'll show you that would be the case. But anyway, for the string bed deflection and the ERT 300, they're pretty comparable just looking at these numbers. All right, so let's take a look at the first method where it's not recommended that you install 8 mains on one side and 8 on the other. But just to see what happened, yeah, I was kind of concerned about the racket actually more than anything else, but the racket survived. So with the string meter, I could actually measure individual strings. So what I have here is the left side of the mains and the right side here, and these are the numbers I was getting. So what I was curious about was to see what the difference was between the left and the right side of the mains, and the difference was 2.5 pounds. And then I also did the same with the crosses to see what the difference is. And as I show you the other methods, you'll see how they all compare. But I have this one highlighted because of the 4 methods, this one had the largest difference in the left and the right side. All right, so next we have the overlap of 3 main strings. And I have this first one highlighted because of the 4 methods, this one happened to have the least or the lowest differential between the left and the right side at 0.75 pounds. However, on the crosses, I have this one highlighted because it had the largest differential between the bottom and the top at 2.25. Another thing to note is that you'll notice that on this one, on the right side at 55.25, it's greater than the left side, and it's also the same here on the right compared to the left. All right, so now we have the method that I have been using where I overlap two main strings. The thing to note here is that you'll notice that even though the differential is at 1.25, which is more than here, it's definitely less than this, but the difference here is 2 pounds. So at least these two measurements are closer together. It's within 0.75. So that I think is a good thing. The other thing I noticed is that on this string job, the left side at 55.75 is higher than the right side now. And when I show you the last one, I have a theory why this left side is now showing up higher. All right, so now we have our final method where I overlap the mains by one string. And what you'll notice here is the differential at 0.75 is as low as the one I did here with the three mains. So that's a good thing right there. And the difference on the crosses is at 2 pounds, which is comparable to at least these three right here. So just looking at the readings, I think having this difference at 0.75, that's really important. And it doesn't seem like the crosses were affected as much from one method to another. Now, earlier I mentioned on this one here how the left side is higher, and you'll notice that the same is here at 56 versus the 55.25. Now, here's the theory. I think that the reason why these two ended up being the left side tighter and these two being the right side tighter. All right, so I have my racket here to explain what my theory is, or maybe it's just by coincidence, but what I have here is this bottom row. Again, this is the one that I installed, and I always do the left side first. So I installed the 8 mains on this side and then ended up with the right. And remember, the right side was the tighter side on that installation. And then on the second one where I alternated 3 mains and I went left, right, left, right. So again, I ended up on the right side, and that was the side that ended up tighter. Now let's take a look at the installation where there's 2 strings overlap. So I went left, right, and left. So on this one, I ended up on the left side. And then finally on the one overlap, I went left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. So on these two that I ended up on the left side, I ended up with a higher tension on that side. So I'm not a physicist, or I don't know if what the reason is for that, but maybe it was coincidence, but it's interesting to see that the side that you end up on was actually tighter. In summary, I would like to add that I used synthetic gut in this experiment because of the fact that it does stretch out, and I think the numbers here might reflect it better compared to if I had used polyester, although it would make an interesting video for a future experiment. But if I were to rank these 3 methods, this would come in at number 1 because of the fact that the differential between the left and the right was the lowest. And this would be number 2 and number 3. I'm not sure what happened here though, but it is what it is. And yeah, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to start stringing with the overlap of 1 main string. And I'm going to work on my stringing time and try and get my time to get up to this 12-minute mark. Thanks for watching. Happy listening. And let your strings play.